Eleanor Hayes's hand trembled on the clinic door handle. 47 minutes. That's all she had before Robert expected her home. She adjusted her sunglasses despite the gray October sky. The dark lenses hiding more than brightness could explain. Through the frosted glass, she could see the waiting room neutral walls, outdated magazines, the smell of antiseptic that made her stomach turn. Her phone buzzed, 3 missed calls already. Her pulse hammered against the high collar of her cardigan, the fabric scratching against skin that shouldn't hurt, but did. The lip pain was just an excuse, a believable reason to finally walk through these doors after years of carefully applied concealer and long-sleeved shirts in summer heat. Her reflection stared back from the glass, 58 years old, 20 pounds lighter than last year. Wedding ring spinning loose on her finger. What Mitchell would discover in the next hour would go far beyond a split lip, far, far beyond. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. Eleanor Hayes had been 23 when she married Robert Hayes in the spring of 1989. He'd just returned from the Gulf, still wearing his uniform to the courthouse wedding, and she'd thought the tremor in his hands was from service to his country. She'd been wrong about many things back then. Now, at 58, she barely recognized the woman she'd been, the elementary school teacher who'd loved reading to children, who'd kept a garden full of sunflowers, who'd laughed easily, and often that woman had disappeared gradually, like color leaching from fabric left too long in harsh sunlight. 3 years into retirement, and she couldn't remember the last time she'd read anything but Robert's mood. Her cardigan hung loose on her frame, the navy blue chosen because Robert approved of dark colors. Dignified, he'd say. The foundation on her left cheek was applied thicker than the right, a technique perfected over years. Her wedding ring spun when she moved her hand. She'd lost weight steadily over the past decade. But Robert wouldn't allow her to resize it. Waste of money, he'd said, though she'd later found receipts for his new fishing equipment totaling $3,000. The purse clutched against her ribs contained $347, saved over 2 years from grocery money and hidden in the car's exhaust pipe. Her daughter, Jennifer, was 32 now, living somewhere Eleanor wasn't allowed to know. 12 years since that last terrible argument, 12 years of silence that felt like death. Sarah Mitchell had heard Eleanor's name before she'd ever met her. In a town of 8,000, patterns emerged if you knew how to look. At 42, Sarah had been watching and documenting those patterns for over a decade, ever since returning to Millbrook with her medical degree and a determination to do what no one had done for her mother. Sarah's father, James Mitchell, had been a real Vietnam veteran, the kind who woke screaming, who couldn't handle fireworks on the 4th of July, who'd finally found peace at the end of a rope in their garage when Sarah was 32. Her mother, Susan, had died 6 years before that from a fall down the stairs that Sarah knew in her bones wasn't accidental. She'd been 16, still believing the lies about her mother's clumsiness. That's why Sarah had returned to Millbrook after her divorce, why she'd taken a position at the family clinic instead of a more lucrative practice in Indianapolis. She'd learned to recognize the sins, the long sleeves in summer, the last-minute appointment cancellations, the way some women flinched at unexpected movements, Robert Hayes was 62, retired from his position as a bank manager 3 years prior. He volunteered twice weekly at the Veterans Hall, organizing benefit dinners and memorial services. His colleagues called him dedicated. His neighbors called him helpful. He'd fixed the Henderson boys' bicycle just last week, helped Mrs. Patterson carry her groceries. Everyone in Millbrook knew Robert Hayes took care of his wife, who'd become so fragile over the years, so anxious and confused. Such a good man, they said. Such a patient husband, such a perfect mask. Eleanor arrived at exactly 10:30, not 10:28, not 10:32, exactly on time, the way Robert required. The waiting room held 4 other patients, and she chose the chair closest to the exit, her back against the wall where she could watch the door. Nurse Linda Patterson looked up from the reception desk and smiled, though something flickered in her eyes when she recognized Eleanor. They'd known each other from church, had served on the same committees years ago, before Eleanor had gradually stopped attending meetings. "Eleanor, good to see you. Just need you to fill out this updated medical history form." Eleanor's hands shook as she took the clipboard. The pen felt heavy under previous injuries or hospitalizations. She stared at the blank lines. Where would she even begin? The broken wrist in 2010 ice patch. She'd told everyone. Cracked ribs in 2010 fell downstairs. Facial contusions in 20 car door swung back. Sprained ankle in 20 garden hose. Each lie documented in careful handwriting across different forms at different clinics. She left most of it blank. Linda watched her from the desk, noticing the long-sleeved cardigan, despite the 68-degree temperature, noticing how Eleanor's gaze kept darting to the parking lot, noticing the tremor in those once steady teacher's hands. She said nothing. In small towns, you learned what not to see. Eleanor's phone buzzed. A text from Robert. "How long will this take?" She typed a response, deleted it, typed again. Her thumb hovered over the send button for 15 seconds before she pressed it. Almost done. Home by 11:40. The reply came instantly. "Don't forget the dry cleaning." As if she could forget anything. As if forgetting wasn't what triggered the worst of it. 20 minutes later, Dr. Mitchell called her back. Eleanor rose slowly, testing her weight on her left ankle, still tender from last month. She followed the doctor down the narrow hallway, automatically noting the exit signs, the distance to the back door, the window in the examination room that could open if necessary. "Have a seat, Eleanor." But Mitchell's voice was warm but professional. She positioned herself at eye level rather than towering over her patient. "Tell me what brings you in today." "My lip." Eleanor touched it gingerly. "It's been hurting for 3 days. I think I bit a kid while eating." Mitchell moved closer, tilting Eleanor's chin toward the light. The split on the lower lip was obvious, still weeping slightly despite 3 days to heal. But it was the bruising that caught her attention, not just around the lip, but along the jaw. A yellowish-green discoloration that spoke of impact from several days prior. "May I examine your mouth more thoroughly?" Dr. Mitchell asked. Eleanor nodded, unable to speak. The examination revealed what Dr. Mitchell had suspected. The laceration ran along the outside of the lower lip, difficult to self-inflict, consistent with external trauma. When she gently pressed Eleanor's jaw, her patient winced but immediately said, "I'm fine." those two words. Dr. Mitchell had heard them from her mother 1,000 times. "I'd like to check your teeth, if that's all right," she said carefully. "Sometimes injuries to the mouth can affect the surrounding structures." Eleanor hesitated, glancing at her phone. 10:42. She had just over an hour. Okay. The dental exam revealed 2 upper incisors slightly loose. The kind of looseness that came from sudden impact. Fresh bruising darkened the inside of her mouth. And there, along the inner cheek, Dr. Mitchell saw old scar tissue, the kind that built up from repeated injury. "Eleanor," Dr. Mitchell kept her voice gentle, "these injuries concern me. The pattern suggests trauma to your face. Can you tell me what really happened?" Eleanor's eyes filled with the tears she wouldn't let fall. "I told you. I bit my lip." "What about the loose teeth, the bruising on your jaw?" "I'm clumsy." The words came automatically, worn smooth from decades of use. "I've always been clumsy." "May I check your blood pressure?" "I'll need you to remove your cardigan." "No!" The word came too fast, too sharp. Eleanor caught herself, softened her tone. I'm pulled. Can I keep it on?" Mitchell saw the panic flash across her patient's face, saw the way Eleanor's hand instinctively moved to pull her sleeve down where it had ridden up slightly, revealing the edge of a bruise on her forearm. "Eleanor, I need to examine your arms for the blood pressure cuff. It's standard procedure." Eleanor checked her phone again. 10:48. Her breathing quickened. "I really need to go soon. Robert is expecting me." "Just a few more minutes," Dr. Sita Mitchell said. Though she was already documenting everything she'd seen, already making the decision that would change both their lives. "Please." Eleanor's phone erupted with a ringtone that made her entire body go rigid. Robert's name flashed on the screen. Her hands shook so violently she nearly dropped it. "I have to answer," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "If I don't answer, he'll—" She stopped herself. But Dr. Mitchell had already heard enough. "Go ahead," Mitchell said quietly. "I'll step out." "No!" Eleanor's panic was palpable. "He'll hear the echo. He'll know I'm in a small room. Please, just be quiet." She answered on speaker, her finger trembling over the button. "Hello, where are you?" Robert's voice filled the examination room, pleasant on the surface. But Dr. Mitchell heard the edge underneath, sharp as broken glass. "At the clinic, honey. I told you. Remember my lip?" "It's been 20 minutes, Eleanor. How long does it take to look at a lip? They're running behind. You know how the doctor's offices are." Eleanor's voice had changed entirely, smaller, placating. The tone of someone diffusing a bomb with words. "I'll be out soon. You said 11:45. It's 10:50 now. That gives you 55 minutes to finish there, pick up my dry cleaning, and get home." "Yes, I know. I'll make it." "You'd better. We're having the Hendersons for dinner Friday. I need to know you picked up my blue shirt." At the mention of Friday, Eleanor's face drained of what little color remained. Her free hand instinctively moved to her ribs, a protective gesture that Dr. Mitchell catalogued mentally. "I will. I promise." "Eleanor." His tone shifted, became almost tender. it was somehow worse than the anger. "You know I worry about you. Ever since you started having those episodes, the doctor said you need to stay on schedule. Structure helps with your anxiety. Remember, I remember. Good girl. I'll see you soon. I love you. I love you too." The words were automatic, hollow. The call ended. Eleanor sat frozen, staring at the phone as if it might explode. Dirt. Mitchell moved carefully back into Eleanor's line of sight, keeping her movements slow and predictable. "Eleanor, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to know that whatever you tell me stays between us unless you give me permission otherwise. Are you safe at home?" "Of course." The answer came too quickly, rehearsed. "Robert takes care of me. You heard him, he worries." That didn't sound like worry. That sounded like control. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. She'd been holding back. "You don't understand. He's not well. He has PTSD from the war, the Gulf War. He saw terrible things, and sometimes he doesn't mean to—" She stopped, realizing she'd said too much. "Doesn't mean to what, Eleanor?" Silence stretched between them. Mitchell could hear the clock ticking on the wall, could hear Eleanor's rapid breathing, could hear the moment when 35 years of carefully constructed lies began to crumble. "I need to examine you properly," Art Mitchell said gently. "Not just your lip. I need to document what I'm seeing because I think you're in danger. Will you let me help you? If you report anything, he'll know. He has friends everywhere. The police, the VA, the—" Eleanor's voice broke. "Last time someone tried to help, it got worse. So much worse." "There was a last time." Eleanor nodded slowly. She looked at her phone again, 10:53, and made a decision. Her hands moved to the buttons of her cardigan, fingers fumbling with each one as if they belonged to someone else. When she finally removed it, Dart Mitchell had to work to keep her expression neutral. Eleanor's arms told a story written in bruises, defensive marks on her forearms where she'd tried to block blows, finger-shaped bruises on her upper arms from being grabbed and shaken. Some were fresh purple, others fading to yellow-green. A timeline of violence mapped across her skin. "How long?" Mitchell asked. "The first time was 1991. 3 months after we married." Eleanor's voice was distant now, as if she were reading from someone else's history. "He came home angry about something at work. I'd moved his coffee mug. Such a small thing. Yeah. He grabbed my wrist and twisted until I heard it crack. Then he cried and apologized for hours, bought me roses, said it would never happen again. But it did. It always does, doesn't it? The second time was easier for him. The third time, easier still. By the time Jennifer was born, I'd learned all the rules. Don't move his things. Don't question his decisions. Don't speak unless spoken to when he was in one of his moods. Don't. She laughed bitterly. I became very good at don't. Mitchell began documenting the injuries with her phone camera, asking permission for each photo. "Tell me about Jennifer." Eleanor's face transformed, grief replacing fear. "She's 32 now. A doctor, like you, pediatrics in Boston. At least, that's what I think. I'm not allowed to contact her." "Why not?" 12 years ago. She tried to stop him. She was 20, home from college for the summer. Robert was hurting me. And Jennifer ran in. She screamed at him to stop. He pushed her. She hit her head on the doorframe. There was so much blood. Eleanor's hands twisted in her lap, wedding ring spinning. I told her to go, packed her bags while Robert was in the shower, gave her all the cash I had, and told her to run and never look back. Told her if she loved me, she'd go and never contact me again because he'd use her to hurt me, use me to hurt her. She left that night. I haven't spoken to her since. Sometimes I think I see her in crowds, but it's never really her. Robert says she abandoned us, says she was always ungrateful, but I know the truth. I saved her life by sending her away. Dr. Mitchell pulled up Eleanor's medical records on her computer. Eleanor, this isn't the first time you've sought medical care for injuries. I'm seeing visits to 4 different facilities over the past decade. He makes me go to different places. Says I'm clumsy. That one doctor might think something's wrong with me, get me committed or something. Eleanor laughed without humor. Turns out he was right to worry, just not for the reasons he said. 20, Indianapolis General Hospital. Do you remember that visit? Eleanor's hand moved to her ribs. I remember. Broken ribs, damaged liver. He'd kicked me. I managed to call a rideshare while he was passed out drunk. Told the hospital I'd been in a car accident. The records say you left against medical advice. It says here that a man claiming to be your husband arrived, and you suddenly wanted to leave. He found me. I don't know how, but he always finds me. I've tried leaving 3 times. 3 times. Dr. Mitchell. And each time it was worse than the last. The beatings after I came back. She closed her eyes. I learned my lesson. There's no leaving Robert Hayes. Eleanor, you're going to say there are shelters, protection orders, police. I've tried all of that. He's a veteran. He's respected. He volunteers. He's friends with half the police department. Who are they going to believe, the decorated Gulf War hero, or his mentally unstable wife, who everyone knows has anxiety problems? Her phone buzzed again, a text from Robert. Shouldn't be much longer now, right? Eleanor's hands began to shake again. I have to go. I have 42 minutes to get the dry cleaning and make it home. If I'm late? What happens if you're late, Eleanor? The question hung in the air between them. Eleanor opened her mouth to answer, then froze. Her eyes had fixed on something past Mitchell's shoulder, the examination room's window that looked out onto the parking lot. He's here, she whispered, all color draining from her face. Oh, God, he's here. Doctor! Mitchell moved to the window, through the glass. She could see a silver sedan pulling into the parking lot slowly, deliberately, like a predator circling. The driver's door opened, and Robert Hayes stepped out. He was tall, well-built for 62, wearing khakis and a polo shirt with a Veterans Hall logo. To anyone else, he looked like exactly what he pretended to be, a concerned husband checking on his wife. But Dr. Mitchell saw the way he scanned the parking lot, methodical and controlled, saw the way his jaw was set, the rigid posture that spoke of barely contained anger. She'd seen that look before, on her own father, but her father's rage had been turned inward, destroying himself rather than others. Eleanor, listen to me. Dr. Mitchell moved away from the window, positioning herself between her patient and the door. You're safe here. I'm not going to let him take you out of this room until we have a plan. You don't understand." Eleanor was hyperventilating now, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "He'll make a scene. He's good at that, acting like the worried husband while I'm the crazy wife. Everyone will believe him. They always do. Not this time." Just Mitchell pulled out her phone and quickly typed a message to Linda at the front desk. "Code purple. Call state police, not local. Patient in danger. What are you doing?" Eleanor's panic escalated. "If you call the police, if you report this, he'll know I told." He said, "If I ever told anyone, if I ever made him look bad in public." She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Mitchell crouched down to Eleanor's eye level. "I lost my mother because nobody helped her. I will not lose you too. Do you understand me? I will not let him hurt you again." Eleanor's face crumpled. 35 years of held-back tears finally began to fall. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to leave. I've tried." "I know you have, and I know it didn't work before, but this time is different. This time you have evidence, documentation, and witnesses who believe you. This time—" A knock on the door interrupted her. Not Linda's gentle tap, but a firm, insistent knock that made Eleanor flinch. "Eleanor." Robert's voice came through the door, dripping with false concern. "Honey, are you okay in there? The nurse said you've been here for over 30 minutes. I got worried." Eleanor looked at Dr. Mitchell with wild eyes, trapped animal recognition passing between them. "Mr. Hayes, we're finishing up." Mitchell kept her voice professional, steady. "Just a few more minutes, please. I'd really like to see my wife. She has anxiety. You see, medical settings make her nervous. I'm sure she needs me." There was something in the way he said it. "I'm sure she needs me." That made Dr. Mitchell's skin crawl. It wasn't about Eleanor's needs at all. It was a threat wrapped in solicitude. Eleanor stood, reaching for her cardigan. "I should go. I'll be fine. I'm sorry I wasted your time." "Sit down, Eleanor." Dr. Mitchell's tone was firm, but not unkind. "You're not wasting anyone's time, and you're not leaving until we figure this out together." She moved to the door and locked it. The click of the deadbolt was audible in the small room. "Doctor." Robert's voice changed subtly, the warmth evaporating. "Did you just lock that door? Standard procedure for sensitive examinations. Mr. Hayes, please wait in the lobby." "Eleanor, answer me. Are you okay?" Eleanor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Dr. Mitchell watched her patient literally freeze, caught between her trained response to obey and her desperate need for help. "Eleanor," Robert's voice was louder now, "answer me right now." Dr. Mitchell's phone buzzed. A message from Linda. "State Trooper 15 min away. Local PD arrived. Tom Bradley. He knows Robert." Of course he did. In a town of 8,000, everyone knew everyone. And Robert Hayes, respected veteran and community volunteer, would have cultivated those relationships carefully. "Mr. Hayes, I need you to step away from the door, please. Not until I see my wife." His voice had dropped, become harder. The mask was slipping. "Eleanor has medical issues, confusion, anxiety. Sometimes she makes up stories when she's stressed. I need to be there to help explain her condition to you, Doctor. Mitchell had heard versions of this speech before. The concerned husband explaining away his wife's credibility before she could even speak. Gaslighting wrapped in medical terminology. Another knock. This one different. Dr. Mitchell, it's Officer Bradley. She opened the door a crack. Tom Bradley stood there in uniform, 40-something with a weathered face and kind eyes. Behind him, Robert Hayes watched intently. Doctor, Mr. Hayes is concerned about his wife. Says she's been here quite a while. Everything okay? Mr. Mitchell stepped partially into the hallway, keeping the door mostly closed behind her. Officer, I'm in the middle of a confidential medical examination. Mr. Hayes will need to wait. Tom, Robert moved closer, all wounded concern. Thank God you're here. Something's not right. Eleanor's been in there over 30 minutes. The doctor locked the door. I think. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. I think she might be having one of her episodes. Paranoid delusions. It happened sometimes, leftover trauma from her childhood. Officer Bradley looked uncomfortable. Doc, is Mrs. Hayes mentally competent right now? Dr. Mitchell felt rage building in her chest. This was exactly what Eleanor had warned her about. Robert was already constructing the narrative, already planting seeds of doubt about his wife's mental state. Hayes is completely competent. She's also my patient, which means this conversation is over. She started to close the door. Robert moved forward. Eleanor, honey, please, come out. Let's go home. You're not thinking clearly. Step back, sir. Officer Bradley put a hand on Robert's shoulder. That's when everything shifted. Robert's face transformed. The concerned husband mask dropped completely, replaced by something cold and furious. He shrugged off Bradley's hand violently. Don't touch me. That's my wife in there. She's my wife. You have no right. Sir, calm down. 35 years I've taken care of her, fed her, clothed her, put up with her constant anxiety and neediness. And this is what I get. Some doctor filling her head with, Mr. Hayes, you need to calm down right now. Officer Bradley's hand moved to his belt. The commotion had drawn attention. Other patients peered from rooms. Linda stood at the reception desk, phone in hand, and through it all, Dr. Mitchell could hear Eleanor sobbing behind the closed door. Robert seemed to realize he'd gone too far. His face smoothed out, the mask sliding back into place, though not quite as perfectly as before. I apologized. Tom, I'm just worried about my wife. You know how it is. You've been married, what, 20 years? You understand how protective we get, especially with someone as fragile as Eleanor. Officer Bradley looked torn. He glanced at Dr. Mitchell, then back at Robert, clearly trying to reconcile the man he knew from the Veterans Hall with the man he'd just witnessed. Why don't we all take a breath? Bradley suggested. Mr. Hayes, come wait in the lobby. Let the doctor finish her exam. Then we'll sort this out like reasonable people. I'm not going anywhere until I see my wife. That's not your choice to make. Then I'll call my lawyer. False imprisonment. That's what this is. You're holding my wife against her will. A new voice cut through the tension. Actually, I think you'll find that's not what's happening. hear it all, everyone turned. A state trooper stood in the hallway, tall and solid in his gray uniform. His nameplate read Patterson. He looked at Officer Bradley, then at Robert, and finally at Dr. Mitchell. "Trooper David Patterson, State Police. I received a report of a domestic violence situation." "Mitchell." He nodded to her. "My mother asked me to come. She said you might need someone who isn't locally connected. Linda's son, Mitchell, could have kissed him." Robert's face went white, then red. "This is ridiculous." "Tom, you know me. Tell him I don't know you, sir." Trooper Patterson's voice was professionally neutral. "What I know is that a medical professional has reported concerns about a patient's safety. That's what I'm here to investigate. My wife has anxiety. She gets confused. This doctor is—" "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the door and have a seat in the lobby. I want to talk to my wife." "That's not going to happen right now." Robert's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Mitchell thought he might actually swing at the trooper. But then some internal calculation occurred, and he stepped back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Fine, fine, but this isn't over, Eleanor." He raised his voice toward the closed door. "Remember what I told you. Remember the rules. Remember what happens when you break the rules." The threat was barely veiled. Officer Bradley winced. Trooper Patterson's jaw tightened. "Sir, that sounded an awful lot like a threat." "A threat? No, officer. Just reminding my wife of our marriage vows, for better or worse. Remember, through sickness and health, Eleanor knows what I mean." He turned and walked toward the lobby, shoulders back, the picture of injured dignity. But his parting glance at the examination room door promised consequences. Officer Bradley looked at Dr. Mitchell apologetically. "Doc, I had no idea. Your radio—" Trooper Patterson interrupted. "Turn it off. We're going to need to have a conversation about how domestic violence calls are handled in this department." Dr. Mitchell slipped back into the examination room and locked the door again. Eleanor had collapsed in the chair, sobbing into her hands. The sound was heartbreaking. 35 years of suppressed anguish finally breaking free. "Is he gone?" Eleanor managed between sobs. "He's in the lobby." "But Eleanor, we can't keep him out forever. We need to make a decision right now. Are you ready to leave? Because if you walk out of here with him today—" Dr. Mitchell didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Eleanor looked up, mascara streaking her face. 35 years of fear warring with one desperate moment of clarity. "Call my daughter," she whispered. "Please? Call Jennifer. I want my daughter." The social worker arrived within minutes, a woman named Patricia Chen, who'd handled domestic violence cases for 15 years, while Eleanor gave her statement in halting, tear-broken sentences. Dr. Mitchell worked with Trooper Patterson to piece together Eleanor's medical history. What emerged was damning. 4 different medical facilities over 10 years. Each visit documented injuries that Eleanor had explained away as accidents: a broken wrist from an icy sidewalk, cracked ribs from a fall downstairs, facial contusions from a car door. But when Patterson laid out the reports chronologically, the pattern became impossible to ignore. "Every 6 to 8 months, he said quietly, spreading the papers across the desk in Dick Mitchell's office. "Like clockwork. And look at this 2020, Indianapolis, General Hospital. Left against medical advice after a mail claiming to be her husband arrived. Dr. Mitchell pulled up those records on her computer. The emergency room physician's notes made her stomach turn. This physician suspects ongoing domestic violence. Patient appears coerced by husband present during interview. Attempted to speak with patient alone. Husband refused to leave. Patient left before protective order could be offered. They suspected, Dr. Mitchell said, anger rising in her throat. They knew something was wrong, and she just walked out. Because he came for her, Patterson said. Just like today. This is his pattern. Control, isolate, retrieve. Officer Bradley appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. Dave, I need to talk to you now. The two officers stepped into the hallway. Dr. Mitchell could hear their lowered voices through the door, could hear Bradley's repeated, I had no idea, and Jesus Christ, how did I not see it? When Patterson returned, his expression was grim. Tom says Robert's been at the Veterans Hall for 12 years, model volunteer, organizes fundraisers, visits sick vets in the hospital. Everyone loves him. Of course they do, Dr. Mitchell said bitterly. That's how abusers work. They're charming in public, monsters in private. Tom also said something interesting. Robert talks about his Gulf War service a lot, combat stress, PTSD from what he saw, uses it to explain why Eleanor is so fragile around him, says she has to be careful not to trigger his episodes. Something in Patterson's tone made Dr. Mitchell look up sharply. What are you thinking? I'm thinking I'm going to make a phone call to the VA records department. He pulled out his phone. Something my mother taught me: if someone's story sounds too perfect, check the details. 20 minutes later, Patterson's face had gone from grim to furious. He'd been on hold, then speaking in clipped tones, then requesting information be faxed immediately. Now he stood at the fax machine in the clinic's administrative office, watching pages slowly emerge. Son of a bitch, he breathed, reading the first page. Son of a bitch. Dr. Mitchell moved to his shoulder. What is it? Robert Hayes, service record. Patterson's finger stabbed at the document. Gulf War, 96 months in Kuwait. Position supply logistics specialist. No combat designation. No Purple Heart. No combat medals of any kind. Dr. Mitchell's mind reeled. But Eleanor said what he told her, what he told everyone. Patterson flipped to the next page. Here's his VA benefits application from 1992. Applied for PTSD disability compensation. Status denied. Reason: no combat exposure documented. No qualifying traumatic event. He lied. Dr. Mitchell felt something cold settle in her chest. He's been lying for 35 years. It gets worse. Patterson showed her another document. He appealed twice, both times denied. Look at this note from the VA psychiatrist who evaluated him in 1993. Patient exhibits narcissistic personality traits and controlling behaviors. No evidence of combat-related PTSD symptoms more consistent with pre-existing personality disorder. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture far uglier than Dr. Mitchell had imagined. Well, the abuse started in 91, the same year he came back from Kuwait. Right after he realized his cushy supply job wasn't going to get him the veteran hero status he wanted, Patterson was already on his phone again. "I'm calling the Veterans Hall. Someone needs to check his medals." While Patterson made calls, Dr. Mitchell returned to the examination room where Eleanor sat with Patricia Chin. The social worker had coaxed out more of the story, 35 years compressed into an hour of testimony. Jennifer's exile, the 3 failed escape attempts, the financial control, the isolation, the escalating violence. "Eleanor," Mitchell said gently, "I need to ask you something. Robert's PTSD. When did he tell you about it?" "Right after we married. He said the war had changed him, that he'd seen terrible things in combat." "Did he ever show you his military records, his discharge papers?" Eleanor shook her head. "He kept them locked in a box in the garage. Said they were too painful to look at." "Why?" Mitchell exchanged glances with Patricia. "Because we've discovered something. Robert was never in combat. He was a supply specialist who spent 6 months in Kuwait, well away from any fighting. The VA denied his PTSD claims because there was no combat exposure to cause it." Eleanor stared at her, uncomprehending. No. He has medals. He has a Purple Heart. I've seen it." "Stolen valor," Patricia said quietly. "It's more common than you'd think. People buy fake medals online. They create false narratives of service to gain sympathy, respect, benefits they didn't earn." The color drained from Eleanor's face. 35 years. I defended him for 35 years. I told Jennifer he was sick, that he couldn't help it. I told myself he was suffering from what he'd seen in the war. I lost my daughter because I believed his lies." "You believed what he told you," Dr. Mitchell said. "That's not your fault. That's manipulation." "There's more." Patterson had returned, carrying more faxed documents. "This is a police report from 4 years ago. A neighbor, Marcus Freeman, called 911 to report a domestic disturbance at your address. The responding officer filed it as resolved. Misunderstanding between neighbors." Eleanor's eyes widened. "Marcus, oh God, Marcus, you knew him. He lived next door for 6 years. Vietnam veteran. We hardly ever spoke because Robert didn't like me talking to the neighbors. But Marcus would wave when I was in the garden. He died 2 years ago. Lung cancer." Patterson's expression turned solemn. "Hayes, Marcus Freeman left something with his attorney before he died. A sealed letter with instructions to open it if anything happened to you." He handed her several pages. Eleanor's hands shook as she read Marcus's careful handwriting. "To whoever reads this, my name is Marcus Freeman. I served in Vietnam from 1960 to 1970. I've seen real combat, and I know what real trauma looks like. Robert Hayes is not traumatized. He's a liar and an abuser, and I watched him hurt his wife for years while the rest of this community celebrated him as a hero. I called the police 4 times. Each time, they knew Robert from the Veterans Hall. Each time, they believed him over an old dying vet who they thought was confused. I'm not confused. I know what I saw through their windows. I know what those bruises meant. I researched Robert's service record. He never saw combat. His medals are fake. His PSD is fake. His entire identity is built on lies, and he uses those lies to abuse his wife and manipulate this community. I'm dying now. Agent Orange is eating me from the inside, but I'm using what time I have left to document everything. Robert Hayes dishonors every real veteran who ever served. He hides behind our sacrifices while terrorizing the woman who trusted him. Eleanor, if you're reading this, I'm sorry I couldn't save you in time. I tried. God knows I tried. But I'm leaving you this truth. You don't owe him anything. Not loyalty, not forgiveness, not silence. He's a coward hiding behind the courage of better men. To the police, check his service record, check his medals, check everything, sir. You'll find a trail of lies 35 years long. I've attached my detailed observations and the dates of every incident I witnessed. Freedom isn't free. I learned that in the jungle. But freedom also shouldn't be a prison in your own home. Eleanor Hayes deserves freedom. Real freedom. The kind Marcus Freeman fought for. The letter was dated 6 months before Marcus's death. Attached were pages of meticulous notes, dates, times, descriptions of injuries he'd observed, conversations he'd overheard through open windows. Eleanor was sobbing now, clutching the letter to her chest. He knew, a stranger knew, and he tried to help me. He was a real hero, Patterson said quietly. The kind Robert Hayes could never be. Officer Bradley appeared in the doorway again, this time with evidence bags. Dave, we executed the search warrant on the Hayes residence. You need to see what we found. In the conference room, they laid out the contents of a locked metal box from Robert's garage. 12 unopened letters, organized by year, all addressed to Eleanor in different handwriting, all from Jennifer. Eleanor's hands shook as she opened the first one, dated 12 years ago. Mom, I'm in Boston. I got into medical school. I'm studying pediatrics because of you. You taught me to care for children. I think about you every day. When you're ready to leave him, I'll come get you. I'll drop everything and come. Here's my number. I love you. Jennifer. Every year, the same message. Every year. Intercepted and hidden by Robert. But there was more in the box. A journal in Robert's handwriting. Dr. Mitchell opened it, read entries that made her feel physically ill. He attempted defiance today, corrected the behavior. She understands now. He asked about contacting her sister, reminded her of the consequences of outside contact, compliance restored. Found E's hidden money, $127 in the garage. Confronted her. She won't try that again. The clinical detachment with which he documented his abuse was chilling. He'd treated his marriage like a military operation, his wife like an enemy, to be controlled and subdued. The final piece of evidence was a bundle of bank statements. The joint account that Robert had told Eleanor was barely breaking even actually held over $400,000, Eleanor's teacher's pension, her inheritance from her parents, everything she'd earned in 30 years of teaching, all controlled by Robert, all kept secret from her. Patterson looked at Officer Bradley. Tom, I'm going to need you to bring Robert in for formal questioning, and I'm going to need internal affairs to review how his previous domestic calls were handled. Bradley nodded, his face pale. I'll turn in my own report. I should have seen it. We all should have seen it. You saw what he wanted you to see. Yes, Mitchell said. That's what narcissists do. They're expert actors. Patricia Chen stood. I'm calling the DA. With this evidence, we can hold him pending charges. Mrs. Hayes, you're not going back to that house. We're placing you in emergency protective custody at a confidential location." Eleanor looked up from Jennifer's letters, her face streaked with tears. "Can you find my daughter? Can you tell her I want to see her? That I never stopped loving her? She's already on her way." Patricia said gently, "Mitchell contacted her an hour ago. She's driving from Boston right now." For the first time in 35 years, Eleanor Hayes smiled through her tears. "She's coming. Jennifer's really coming. She left the moment she heard you were safe. She should be here in about 3 hours." Eleanor clutched the letters to her chest, these messages from her daughter that she should have received years ago. This proof that she'd never been abandoned after all. In the lobby, 2 more state troopers were escorting Robert Hayes out in handcuffs. His mask had finally completely fallen away. The concerned husband was gone. What remained was rage, pure and undisguised. "This isn't over. Eleanor," he shouted toward the examination rooms, "you think you can leave me? You think anyone will believe you over me? I'm a decorated veteran. I'm a pillar of this community. You're nothing. Sir, you have the right to remain silent." Patterson interrupted. "I suggest you use it." But Robert couldn't stop. 35 years of unchallenged control unraveling. "She's my wife, mine. I made her without me. She's nothing. Eleanor, you hear me. You're nothing without—" The door closed, cutting off his tirade. In the examination room, Eleanor heard it all. But for the first time, his words had no power. She was no longer alone. She was no longer silent. And her daughter was coming home. Eleanor sat in the conference room, surrounded by evidence of her stolen life. The letters from Jennifer lay spread across the table like fallen leaves. 12 years of love that had never reached her. Her hands trembled as she opened another envelope. This one dated 8 years ago. "Mom, I'm getting married next month. I wish you could be there. His name is Michael. He's an architect. He's kind. Mom, he's nothing like Dad. I keep thinking about how you taught me what love shouldn't look like, even if you couldn't leave yourself. That lesson saved me. I hope someday it saves you too, Jennifer." "I missed her wedding," Eleanor whispered. "She got married and I didn't even know." Patricia Chen placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You didn't miss it because of anything you did. Robert stole that from you. He stole all of it." But the tragedy went deeper than stolen letters. As Trooper Patterson continued reviewing Marcus Freeman's detailed observations, a more disturbing picture emerged. Marcus had witnessed the abuse escalating over years, had called for help repeatedly, and had been dismissed every time. His notes from 2019 read, "Heard Eleanor screaming around 11 p.m. Saw Robert drag her from the kitchen to the bedroom. Called 911. Officer Tom Bradley arrived 20 minutes later, stayed for 10 minutes. Robert told him Eleanor had a nightmare and fell. Bradley didn't ask to see Eleanor. I'm beginning to think no one will help her until she's dead." Mitchell read over Patterson's shoulder, her jaw clenched. Marcus had been right. The system designed to protect Eleanor had failed her at every turn. Seduced by Robert's charm and his manufactured veteran status, the Veterans Hall commander arrived at the clinic, a man named Bill Hutchinson, who'd served in Desert Storm actual combat. Unlike Robert, his face was grave as Patterson showed him Robert's real service record. Sweet Jesus! Hutchinson breathed. We gave him the Volunteer of the Year award twice. Twice. We let him speak at Memorial Day services about his combat experiences. None of it was true. None of it, Patterson confirmed. Supply logistics, never saw combat, never earned the medals he wears. Hutchinson's hands balled into fists. He dishonored every real veteran in this town. My brothers who actually fought, who actually died, he stole their stories. And we believed him. Don't blame yourself, Dr. Mitchell said. He was good at lying. 35 years of practice. But Hutchinson shook his head. No, we wanted to believe. It felt good to have a hero among us. We didn't ask questions because we didn't want answers that would complicate the narrative. He looked at Eleanor. Ma'am, I am deeply, profoundly sorry. The Veterans Hall should have been a place of honor. Instead, we gave that man a platform he used to terrorize you. Eleanor couldn't speak. The weight of collective failure was crushing not just the system's failure, but the community's willful blindness. Pastor Matthews from First Baptist arrived next, his elderly face etched with guilt. Eleanor had stopped attending church 5 years ago, too exhausted to maintain the pretense of normalcy. Eleanor, I need to apologize, he said, his voice breaking. You came to me 7 years ago. Do you remember? You asked to speak with me privately after service. You said you needed help, that things at home were difficult. And he paused, shame coloring his features. I told you that marriage was sacred, that you needed to pray harder, be more patient, remember your vows. I sent you back to him. Eleanor did remember. That had been after her third escape attempt, after Robert had found her at her sister's house in Ohio. She'd been desperate enough to try the church as a last resort. And Pastor Matthews had quoted scripture about wives submitting to their husbands, about the sanctity of marriage. I thought I was counseling you toward perseverance. The pastor continued, I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't look beneath the surface. I sent a sheep back to the wolf, and I told myself I was doing God's work. You weren't the only one, Eleanor said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken in an hour. Everyone missed it, or saw it and looked away. That was perhaps the deepest tragedy of all. Patterson's investigation revealed that at least 23 people in Millbrook had suspected something over the years. A grocery store clerk who'd noticed Eleanor's bruises. A bank teller who'd thought it odd that Eleanor wasn't on the joint account. A neighbor who'd heard shouting but assumed it wasn't her business. Linda Patterson, the nurse, finally confessed her own guilt. I've worked at this clinic for 15 years. Eleanor came in at least once a year with injuries. I saw the pattern. I documented everything in my personal notes because something in me knew. She pulled out a worn notebook, pages filled with dates and observations going back 5 years. But I never said anything directly. I told myself I was respecting her privacy. But really, I was just afraid of being wrong, afraid of making things worse, afraid of getting involved. You were documenting, Dr. Mitchell said. That's more than most people did. I should have done more. Linda's voice broke. I should have asked the questions you asked today. I should have locked the door years ago. Instead, I kept my notes in a drawer and told myself I was helping by being ready if she ever asked. But Eleanor, how could you ask when everyone in your life was pretending not to see? The room fell silent. This was the real tragedy, not just what Robert had done, but how an entire community had enabled it through inaction. How the myth of the heroic veteran had been more important than the reality of his victim. How privacy and politeness had become shields for abuse. Eleanor looked around at these people, the pastor, the Veterans Hall commander, the nurse, the police officer, all wearing their guilt-like shrouds. They'd all failed her in different ways. But they were also all here now, finally. Too late to give her back the 35 years she'd lost, but perhaps not too late to prevent the next Eleanor from suffering in silence. "I used to wonder," Eleanor said softly, "if anyone would come to my funeral, if anyone would cry, if anyone would wonder why I died so young." She looked down at Jennifer's letters. "Now I know. You all would have come. You all would have cried. You all would have said you never knew, and you would have believed it." The truth of her words hung heavy in the air. They would have mourned her. They would have called her death a tragedy. They would never have questioned whether they could have prevented it. That was the deepest cut of all. At 2:47 p.m., a silver Honda Civic pulled into the clinic parking lot, going slightly too fast. The driver's door flew open before the engine fully stopped, and a woman emerged, tall, dark-haired, wearing surgical scrubs under a hastily thrown-on jacket. She looked like Eleanor, or rather, like Eleanor might have looked if 35 years of abuse hadn't carved away her spirit. Jennifer Madison ran. Linda met her at the door, recognizing her immediately despite 12 years. "She's in the conference room. She's safe." Jennifer didn't slow down until she reached the doorway. Then she stopped, frozen, staring at the woman sitting amid scattered papers and letters. Eleanor looked up. For a moment, neither moved. 12 years collapsed into a single breath. "Mom." That one word spoken with such tenderness, such longing, broke something open in Eleanor. She stood on shaking legs, and Jennifer crossed the room in 3 strides. When they collided, both were crying. Eleanor was shorter now, thinner, fragile in a way she'd never been before. Jennifer held her mother like something precious and breakable, afraid to grip too tight, afraid to let go. No words came at first, just sobs. Eleanor's hands clutched Jennifer's jacket, the fabric bunching in her fists the way a drowning person clutches a lifeline. Jennifer's face pressed into her mother's hair, breathing in a scent she'd thought she'd forgotten, lavender, and something uniquely Eleanor. "I'm sorry," Eleanor kept whispering. "I'm so sorry. I sent you away. I made you leave." "Mom, stop." Jennifer pulled back just enough to see her mother's face, her hands gentle on Eleanor's shoulders. "You saved my life. I understand that now. I didn't then, but I do now. He told me you hated me, that you were glad to get away from us, that you'd moved on and wanted nothing to do with me." Jennifer's face hardened. "I wrote you every year, every single birthday. Did you get them?" Eleanor gestured to the table where the unopened letters lay. "He hid them, all of them. I thought you had forgotten me." Jennifer's breath caught when she saw her own handwriting, her own words sealed away unread. 12 years of reaching out into silence, thinking her mother had chosen not to respond. "Oh, Mom, I thought you didn't want to hear from me. I thought maybe you blamed me for leaving. Never. Eleanor gripped her daughter's hands. Never. I've thought about you every single day. I kept your picture in my wallet, hidden where he wouldn't see. I'd take it out at night when he was asleep and just look at you, wondering where you were, if you were happy, if you were safe. Doctor. Mitchell watched from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She thought of her own mother, dead at 41 from a fall that wasn't a fall. She thought of all the reunions that never happened because intervention came too late. She thought, this is why I became a doctor. For moments exactly like this, Jennifer finally seemed to notice the other people in the room, the trooper, the social worker, Dr. Mitchell, Linda. Her professional training kicked in, doctor mode overlaying the grief. Tell me everything, she said. What are her injuries? What's the treatment plan? What do we need to do? Jennifer, honey, I'm okay. Eleanor started. Mom, with respect, that's not for you to determine right now. Jennifer's tone was gentle but firm. I'm a pediatrician. I see child abuse victims every day, and I know trauma when I see it. Mitchell. Sarah pulled out Eleanor's veil, spreading the documented injuries across the table. X-rays showing old fractures, photos of bruises in various stages of healing, dental records showing damage from repeated facial trauma. Jennifer examined everything with clinical detachment that was clearly costing her. Her hands trembled slightly as she looked at the X-rays. This rib fracture went 4 years ago, Eleanor said quietly. Treatment? None. I left the hospital before they could admit me. Jennifer closed her eyes briefly. Multiple untreated fractures, dental trauma, soft tissue damage, probable TBE from repeated head trauma. She looked at her mother. We need comprehensive medical evaluation, CT scan, full workup. How's your memory? Any confusion, headaches? Jennifer, I'm fine. Mom, you're not fine. You've been systematically abused for 35 years. No one is fine after that. Jennifer's voice broke on the last word. She took a breath, steadied herself. We're going to get you the help you need. All of it. Medical, psychological, everything. Patricia Chen stepped forward. Dr. Madison, I am the DV advocate assigned to your mother's case. We have immediate protective custody arranged, given the evidence we've collected. The DA is pursuing multiple felony charges. Good. Jennifer's expression was fierce. I want him in prison for the rest of his life. Jennifer, Eleanor said softly, I know you're angry. Angry, Jennifer laughed without humor. Mom, angry doesn't begin to cover it. He took everything from us. 35 years of your life, 12 years of mine. I missed your 50th birthday, your 55th. You missed my wedding. You have a granddaughter you've never met. Her voice cracked. Her name is Emma Rose. She's 6 months old. She has your eyes. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. A granddaughter, Emma Rose Madison, born April 7th. I wanted to call you so badly. Every time she smiles, I see you. Every time she laughs, I hear you reading to my second-grade class. Jennifer pulled out her phone, showed Eleanor photos, a beautiful baby with dark hair and Eleanor's distinctive hazel eyes. Eleanor stared at the photos, tears streaming down her face. Another loss she hadn't even known to grieve. 6 months of her granddaughter's life gone. First steps she'd miss. First words she wouldn't hear. "I want you to meet her," Jennifer said. "I want you to come to Boston, live with us. Michael and I have plenty of room. You can help me with Emma. We can—" She stopped, suddenly uncertain. "If you want. I'm not trying to control your choices. I want you in my life, Mom. I want Emma to know her grandmother." Eleanor couldn't speak past the tears. She just nodded, over and over, gripping Jennifer's hands like anchors. That's when Linda approached, carrying a worn duffel bag. "Eleanor, I need to tell you something. I've been preparing for this day for 5 years." She unzipped the bag. Inside were clothes in Eleanor's size, toiletries, a phone, important documents, birth certificate, social security card, passport. "I made copies of your documents from your medical records. I bought you a prepaid phone fully charged. No one knows the number. There's $1,000 cash from my savings. I even packed the kind of tea you like. You mentioned it once, years ago." Linda's voice trembled. "I couldn't make you leave. That had to be your choice. But I could make sure that when you were ready, you had what you needed." Eleanor stared at the bag, overwhelmed. "You did this for me. I should have done more, should have said something years ago. But yes, I did this because someone did it for me 30 years ago when I needed to escape my first husband. A nurse named Dorothy packed me a bag and slipped it to me in the hospital. She saved my life. I've been waiting to pay it forward." Trooper Patterson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hayes, there's something else. We contacted your sister in Ohio, Mary Ellen. She wants you to know her door is always open. Also, Marcus Freeman left money in his will, $50,000 to establish a shelter fund. His attorney says Marcus wanted the first person helped by that fund to be you." "Marcus?" Eleanor's voice broke on the name. "He really tried to save me? He did everything he could? He documented, he called police, he left testimony. He was a real hero, Mrs. Hayes, the kind your husband only pretended to be." "There's something else," Dr. Mitchell added quietly. She handed Eleanor another document. "Marcus wasn't the only one watching. We've had 3 other women come forward in the last hour. Women Robert dated before you. They all have similar stories: charm at first, then control, then violence. You weren't his first victim, Eleanor. But if we do this right, you can be his last." The weight of it all, the support, the preparation, the multiple people who'd seen and tried to help in whatever way they could, was overwhelming. Eleanor had spent 35 years believing she was alone, but she hadn't been. People had seen. People had cared. The system had failed her, yes, but individuals had tried. Jennifer wrapped an arm around her mother. "You're not alone anymore, Mom. You're never going to be alone again. I promise." Eleanor leaned into her daughter's strength, feeling something she hadn't felt in decades. Hope, real, tangible hope. Not the desperate kind that gets crushed, but the solid kind built on evidence, evidence of people who cared, systems mobilizing, doors opening. "When can I leave?" Eleanor asked. "When can I go to Boston?" "Today." Patricia said, "We'll transport you to a safe house tonight for debriefing and medical evaluation. Then you can travel to Boston with Jennifer whenever you're ready. Tomorrow, if you want." Eleanor looked at her daughter. "Tomorrow?" Jennifer smiled through tears. "Tomorrow, I'll take you home, our home, where you'll be safe, where Emma can meet her grandmother, where we can start making up for lost time." "I can't get those years back," Eleanor said softly. "No," Jennifer agreed. "But we can make the next years count, all of them, together." In the parking lot, a state police van waited to transport Robert to county jail. Through the window, Dr. Mitchell could see him handcuffed in the back, his face twisted with rage. The mask was gone completely now. Everyone could see exactly what Eleanor had lived with for 35 years. Pastor Matthews approached the window, staring at the man he'd defended for decades. "I told her to pray harder," he said to no one in particular. "I told her marriage was sacred. I sent her back to that." "Now you know better," Dr. Mitchell said. "Make sure the next person who comes to you for help doesn't get sent back to her abuser." "I will. I swear to God, I will." It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was, perhaps, the beginning of learning. Eleanor left Millbrook at 4:30 that afternoon, sitting in the passenger seat of Jennifer's Honda with a duffel bag of borrowed belongings and 12 years of unread letters in her lap. She didn't look back as they passed the town limits. For the first time in 35 years, she was leaving without asking permission, without fearing consequences, without counting down minutes until she had to return. "You okay, Mom?" Jennifer asked, glancing over. Eleanor watched Indiana countryside roll past cornfields, farmhouses, the ordinary landscape of her captivity. "I'm free," she said, testing the words. They felt strange in her mouth, like a language she'd forgotten. "Jennifer, I'm actually free." "You are, and you're safe. I promise you, you're safe now." The drive to Boston took 7 hours with stops. Eleanor couldn't eat much. Her stomach was twisted with anxiety and adrenaline, but Jennifer was patient, pulling over whenever her mother needed air or space. They talked in fragments, filling in 12 years of silence with stories. Jennifer told her about medical school, about meeting Michael at a hospital fundraiser, about the tiny apartment they'd shared while saving for their first house. Eleanor listened hungrily, memorizing every detail of the daughter's life she'd missed. Somewhere in Pennsylvania, as the sun set in their rear-view mirror, Eleanor finally asked the question that had haunted her for 12 years. "Did you hate me for sending you away?" Jennifer was quiet for a long moment. "I was angry at first. I thought you chose him over me. It took years of therapy to understand what you were really doing." She reached over and squeezed her mother's hand. "You were protecting me the only way you knew how. And, Mom, it worked. I got out. I got to live. That's what you wanted." "I wanted to live too," Eleanor whispered. "I just forgot how." "Then we'll remember together." They arrived in Boston after midnight. Jennifer and Michael's home was a 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet suburb, with a nursery painted soft yellow and a guest room that Jennifer had been keeping ready, hoping for years. "This is yours," Jennifer said, opening the door to a room with cream-colored walls, a queen bed with a handmade quilt, and bookshelves already filled with books. "I've been decorating it in my head since I bought this house. I always believed you'd come someday. Eleanor stood in the doorway, overwhelmed, a room of her own, space that was hers, no one monitoring, no one controlling, no one punishing her for existing. It's perfect, she managed. That first night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. She lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to unfamiliar sounds, a house that creaked with age rather than threat, a neighborhood where distant sirens didn't make her heart race. Around 3 a.m., there was a soft knock. "Mom, I saw your light on." Jennifer stood in the doorway in pajamas, looking like she had at 8 years old after a nightmare. "Can't sleep either." They ended up in the kitchen drinking chamomile tea while Michael slept upstairs. Eleanor told her daughter about the 35 years, not in clinical detail, but in the truth of it, the gradual erosion of self, the way control became normal, the impossible calculus of survival. "Every morning I'd wake up and think, maybe today will be different," Eleanor said. "It never was, but I kept thinking it. That hope was the cruelest part, that tiny, stupid hope that maybe he'd changed, maybe it would stop." "It's not stupid," Jennifer said. "It's human. And, Mom, that hope is what kept you alive long enough to escape. Don't discount it." The first month in Boston was the hardest. Eleanor saw doctors, so many doctors, a primary care physician who documented the full extent of her injuries, a dentist who began the long process of repairing years of damage, a trauma therapist who specialized in domestic violence survivors. Each appointment revealed another layer of harm, another piece of herself she'd have to reclaim. The PTSD diagnosis came as no surprise. Hypervigilance, flashbacks, panic attacks triggered by sounds or movements too similar to Robert's patterns. Some days Eleanor couldn't leave the house. Some nights she woke screaming, and Jennifer would hold her until the terror passed. But there were victories, too. Small at first, then larger. The first time Eleanor went to a grocery store alone, Jennifer had offered to come, but Eleanor insisted she stood in the parking lot for 10 minutes, breathing, before walking through the automatic doors. She bought exactly what she wanted, not what Robert would approve: chocolate, fresh flowers, a magazine about gardening, things chosen for pleasure, not fear. 2 weeks in, she cut her hair. Robert had always demanded she keep it long, to her waist. Saying anything else made her look masculine. Eleanor walked into a salon and said, "Short? I want it short." When she looked in the mirror, afterward, she hardly recognized herself. The woman looking back had a pixie cut and, for the first time in decades, was smiling. "You look beautiful," Jennifer said when she came home. "Like yourself again." "I don't know who that is anymore," Eleanor admitted, "but I'd like to find out." Physical recovery was faster than psychological. The lip healed completely within weeks. Dental work stabilized her loose teeth. Yikes. She gained 15 pounds healthy weight that made her face less gaunt, her eyes less haunted. But the inside work was slower. Trust, the therapist explained. Takes years to rebuild, self-worth even longer. 3 weeks after arriving in Boston, Eleanor held her granddaughter for the first time. Emma Rose was 6 months old, all chubby cheeks and curious eyes. She looked at Eleanor with such open trust that Eleanor burst into tears. "It's okay, Mom," Jennifer said. "She loves you already." Eleanor rocked the baby, breathing in that sweet infant smell, and felt something crack open in her chest, not breaking but opening, like ice melting after a long winter. "Hello, Emma Rose," she whispered. "I'm your grandmother. I'm sorry I missed your first months, but I'm here now. I'm here." The legal proceedings moved forward with systematic precision. Trooper Patterson built a case that included not just Eleanor's testimony, but medical records, Marcus Freeman's documentation, testimonies from the other 3 women Robert had abused, financial records showing economic control, and Robert's own journal documenting his systematic abuse. 4 months after Eleanor's escape, Robert Hayes stood trial. Eleanor testified via video conference, unable to face him in person, but determined to have her voice heard. Jennifer held her hand through the entire testimony, squeezing tight when Eleanor's voice faltered. Robert's defense tried to claim Eleanor was mentally unstable, that her accusations were delusions born from anxiety. The prosecution destroyed that narrative with medical evidence, expert testimony, and the damning facts of Robert's stolen valor. When the VA records were entered into evidence showing he'd never been in combat, never earned the medals he wore, never qualified for PTSD benefits, the jury's sympathy evaporated. The verdict came back guilty on all counts, multiple counts of domestic battery, financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, witness tampering, and stolen valor charges filed federally. The judge sentenced him to 25 years in state prison, plus federal time to run consecutively. "Mr. Hayes," the judge said at sentencing, "you dishonored true veterans, destroyed your family, and terrorized your wife for 35 years. This court sees you for what you are: not a hero, not a victim of war trauma, but a calculated, cruel abuser who hid behind the sacrifices of better men. This sentence reflects the gravity of your crimes." Eleanor watched the sentencing from Boston, surrounded by Jennifer, Michael, and Emma. When it was over, she felt not triumph, but exhaustion. Justice didn't erase the past. It didn't give her back the years. But it was something. "It's really over," she said. "No, Mom." Jennifer kissed her forehead. "Now it begins. Your real life begins now." 6 months after leaving Millbrook, Eleanor Hayes stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom in her daughter's house that had become home, and barely recognized the woman looking back. Her hair had grown out slightly, silver now, instead of dyed brown. She'd gained 20 pounds and looked healthy. She wore colors bright blue today because she wanted to, because she could. She'd started volunteering at a Boston domestic violence shelter twice a week, using her teaching skills to tutor children while their mothers rebuilt their lives. She'd enrolled in a domestic violence advocate certification program. She'd opened her own bank account. The first time in 35 years her name appeared on an account Robert didn't control. She'd even started dating, tentatively, a kind widower named Frank who'd lost his wife to cancer and understood what it meant to rebuild after loss. But today was special. Today she was returning to Millbrook for the first time since leaving. The Veterans Hall had renamed itself the Marcus Freeman Community Center, with a dedication ceremony to honor the man who tried to save Eleanor when others looked away. Eleanor had been asked to speak. She and Jennifer drove down together. Emma rose, secured in her car seat in the back, gurgling happily. As they crossed into Millbrook, Eleanor felt her chest tighten, but not with fear, with purpose. The community center was packed. Real veterans, their families, people from town who'd finally opened their eyes to what had happened. Dart Mitchell was there, and Linda Patterson, and even Pastor Matthews, looking older and more worn. When Eleanor took the podium, she looked out at the faces, some guilty, some grieving, all paying attention in a way they never had when it mattered. "Marcus Freeman never knew me well," Eleanor began. "We exchanged maybe a dozen words in the 6 years he lived next door. But he saw me, really saw me. Not the version of me that Robert presented, the anxious, fragile woman who needed protecting from herself. Marcus saw through the lies and he acted. He called for help. He documented. He left testimony. He used his dying months to try to save a neighbor he barely knew." Her voice grew stronger. Marcus was a real hero. Not because he served in Vietnam, though he did. Not because he earned his medals, though he earned every one, but because he saw someone suffering and he refused to look away. That's what heroism really is, not combat, not medals, but the courage to act when it's easier to ignore. She paused, looking around the room. "I know many of you feel guilty. You saw things over the years, suspected things, but didn't act. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to ask you to learn from Marcus. The next time you see something wrong, the woman at church, always wearing long sleeves, the neighbor whose voice gets quiet when her husband's around, the friend who cancels plans at the last minute, don't look away. Ask the hard questions. Offer help. Be a Marcus Freeman." After the ceremony, Eleanor visited Marcus's grave. She placed flowers, sunflowers, like the ones she used to grow, and the medal she'd purchased, a replica, Purple Heart, to honor a man who'd earned his valor not in war, but in his quiet, persistent compassion. "Thank you," she said to the headstone. "I'm alive because you wouldn't stay silent. I'm free because you documented the truth. I hope wherever you are, you know it wasn't in vain. You saved me, Marcus, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being the person you were, someone who sees and acts." As she stood to leave, Mitchell approached. "Eleanor, there's someone who wants to meet you." A young woman stood nearby, maybe 30, with bruises poorly covered by makeup and a too bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Eleanor recognized that smile. She'd worn it for 35 years. "This is Rachel," Dr. Mitchell said quietly. "She came to the clinic yesterday. Her husband is, well, she's ready to leave, but she's scared." Eleanor looked at Rachel and saw herself at 23, at 35, at 58, saw every woman who'd ever been trapped by someone who claimed to love them. "I was scared too," Eleanor told her. "I was terrified, but I learned something important. Being scared and being brave aren't opposites. Sometimes being brave means being shrugged and doing it anyway." She took Rachel's hand. "Let me tell you about the people who helped me, and then let's get you safe." As the sun set over Millbrook, Eleanor walked back to Jennifer's car with purpose in her step. Emma was awake now, reaching for her grandmother with chubby hands. Eleanor lifted her granddaughter, feeling the solid weight of her, the warm proof of life continuing. "Where to, Mom?" Jennifer asked. Eleanor looked back at the community center, at the marker honoring Marcus Freeman, at the town where she'd been imprisoned for 35 years, but where she'd also finally been freed. "Home," she said. "Let's go home." And as they drove away, Eleanor didn't look back with regret. She looked forward with hope imperfect, hard-won, real hope, the kind built on truth and action and the knowledge that freedom, no matter when it comes, is always worth fighting for. She was 58 years old. She'd lost 35 years to fear and control, but she had today. She had tomorrow. She had her daughter and her granddaughter and a future she got to choose. It was, Eleanor thought, as Boston's skyline came into view, more than enough. It was everything. The end. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-723. Help is available 24/7. It's never too late to seek safety. Eleanor's story reminds us of a profound truth. It's never too late to reclaim your life. At 58, she found the courage to choose freedom over fear. And in doing so, she discovered something beautiful, her daughter waiting with open arms, a granddaughter she'd never met, and a future she finally got to write herself. This isn't just a story about surviving. It's about the extraordinary courage it takes to start over when you thought all hope was lost. It's about second chances, about communities learning to see what they've been trained to ignore, and about the quiet heroes like Marcus Freeman who refuse to look away when someone needs help. Eleanor lost 35 years, but she didn't lose her capacity for joy, for connection, for building something new from the ashes of what was stolen. Her journey proves that healing is possible, that families can reunite, and that your real life can begin at any moment you choose courage over comfort. If Eleanor's story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to find the courage to make a life-changing decision? What would you tell someone who feels it's too late to start over? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today.